Spire.
Welcome back to Starting Now. I'm your host, Jeff Sarris. This is the show where I talk to entrepreneurs and creatives and artists to reveal their unexpected paths to entrepreneurship. Today my guest is Mars Dorian. I've known Mars for, as we talk about in here, it feels like decades because in internet time goes so much quicker. But I've known Mars for a while, probably nearing a decade, from the blogging space and the art that he was doing for bloggers and for himself and book covers and all these things. Mars has been an artist, a full-time artist, for his entire adult life. And we talk all about NFTs from the artist's perspective. For the last 2.5 months, he's been just diving headfirst into NFTs and really building out his collector base there, all from the inspiration, from the recommendation of one of his existing collectors. But we dive into NFTs from the artist's perspective. We talk about Solana and all the changes there and all the different opportunity that's out there for an artist. And we dive into his story and really connecting his art to sort of some personal struggles that he went through. It put everything in a new light for me. And I mean, I love his stuff even more. But this was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. So without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Mars Dorian. So you've been doing this full time for a while now, and as a full-time artist, full-time designer, like just to start, how do you encapsulate sort of briefly like what you do and what your day-to-day looks like?
Yeah, so I'm an illustrator. I've been a full-time illustrator for I think almost a decade now, maybe 9 years. And what I do basically, I do a variety of things. I have like exhibitions where I sell premium art prints of my artwork. I dub my style urban cartoon art. So it's a cartoonish, comic-ish style, heavily inspired by like a British cartoonist, Japanese artwork in streetwear and a bit of fantasy. So it's a really weird mix. It's very colorful. There's a lot of detail. And what I basically do, so I sell artworks, prints, I do exhibitions. That was pre-COVID, of course. And had galleries and doing commissions for private artists, not artists, like private artist commissions for people. Mm-hmm. Sometimes like small businesses, startups who just hired me to do like artwork and that. And also like illustrations for books and even like covers. So print works, like cover work, private commissions. And yeah, that was basically the baseline of everything that I make.
Yeah, for sure. And now you're dabbling in NFTs.
Yeah, I mean, NFTs, I had just a few months ago, a reader of my blog came up to me like via my email and he said, "Hey, can I buy that artwork as an NFT?" And I was like, "As a what?" and then he was using that language. And I thought, I mean, my English is not the worst. I speak it decently, but he was saying so many confusing words like, make this your Genesis piece and I buy it for you for like at least 0.15 E when you drop on OpenSea or something like that. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, right?
Yeah, all those words are a new language.
I mean, obviously it's English, but like a drop means it's a release, right? Uh-huh. And Genesis drop means it's your first ever release, like the launch of your first artwork on that blockchain. But and was completely new to me. And I asked, have you a bunch of software programming friends? And they told me basically, oh yeah, like it's like a unique digital asset, which is like put on like a blockchain. And they explained it to me like a 5-year-old, right? Uh-huh. Or like a 3 or 2-year-old. And yeah, and then basically I learned it all myself. And it was very complicated because I'm not a techie person. I know like Photoshop and all the design illustration programs, but like here you have to learn about the blockchain, about different exchanges where you swap currencies. And you have to understand like MetaMask, which is a Chrome extension, which you need to connect to a marketplace where you then put up your ETH, and then you need to pay a mint fee, like a gas fee, and it's like measured in Wei. and it changes rapidly. And like, it's a lot, but I did it because I found it exciting, and that's how I started. Yeah.
Yeah. And right now, do you feel like fully comfortable with all that stuff?
Well, here's another trendy word: onboarding. If you bring somebody to the platform and explain them like how to get on there and how to do everything, and I did it to a Czech friend of mine. She's also an illustrator from Prague, and I know her for like 10 years, and I explained it to her, like all the basic information. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It was just so natural for me because I talked to like a collector of mine, and we use that language all the time. And her English is like perfect, but she had no idea what I was talking about, right? And I thought it's exactly how I felt 3 months ago. And no, it's so easy right now. Like I understand like the gas fee, when's the best time to upload something, lazy minting, what you have to watch out for, what's the best edition, how do you price it, how do you price an edition, like just through sheer trial and error.
Yeah.
And it's very natural now. But I still, when I'm overconfident, I still get hit like a little baby when I learn about something like a new NFT platform that uses the Solana cryptocurrency, where you need a different wallet and a different cryptocurrency for that. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, it's humble.
Yeah, that's what I find really fascinating about this space, because when we started, it's so confusing, so complex, just so many moving parts. But now it seems so normalized, like to me too, that when I explain it to people, I end up like skipping some steps because I forget, like, oh yeah, you don't even know what like blockchain is yet. Like I have so much, so many layers to build in. Speaking of Solana, like you've been looking into that. Is there a particular platform you're considering or that you've tested out yet?
So I was on a Clubhouse session by a poet and an NFT creator called Aaron Harper. I don't know. It sounds German, kind of like the name, but it's American.
Okay.
And he basically, there was a woman, and she said that she sold on the, let me see real quick. So she's kind of like onboarding people for Solana-based blockchain, and it's called, because they're new ones, and she tries to onboard me, and I'm very curious, but it's also quite different because you need two different wallets and two different cryptocurrencies. It's called Holaplex.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. And how do you spell that?
So it's like Hola, it's like Hola without the HOLA, and Plex like Solarplex.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'll have to jot that one down. Yeah, I haven't looked at that yet. I've been just starting to look at, let's see, Holaplex or Olaplex. There we go. Okay, sweet. Yeah, because I've just been starting to look at Solana for NFTs specifically, because I bought some Solana a little bit ago, not a ton, but when it was $30 a token. So I was like, it seems really underpriced. And I was like, this is a really, like, it's very solid blockchain. Everything about it is like where Ethereum's going with version 2. So I was like, this just seems like a good like investment. I only bought a handful, not very much at all. But seeing it explode lately, I've been diving back in and looking at it to see like why it's happening. And I saw that, have you seen the exchange FTX?
Yeah, okay. I've heard of it. I'm still in the middle of checking everything out, like Holaplex and everything. I was a little bit about the other cryptocurrency which you need to connect with it. Yeah.
Oh, there's another
Arweave.
One? Oh, for Arweave. Okay, yeah, interesting. Yeah, so then
you need it.
Yeah, so you would then upload your art to Arweave and connect it in, I guess. Huh. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. That's interesting.
Yeah, so the way, real quick, she explains it is basically that Solana is only saving you need two different blockchains, and the other one is like the storage blockchain, which is compatible with Solana so that it runs faster, like in my primitive terms, the way I explain it, right? So that's why you need both for the store that you set up on that Holaplex platform. And it's still undiscovered, it's not undiscovered space, but it's not very competitive yet. Yeah. Very new. Solana it's like going through the roof right now, right? In terms of like, I just checked like how much it has grown over the past week even. I'm thinking, holy crap. Yeah. So I bought some like, and it's it's supposed to be super fast, and I watched a lot of videos. I asked some programming friends, so I'm excited. Like, you should always expand. You should never be hooked to one platform, even if it's the most popular one, because that can make you like comfortable, and you should always pay attention to what else is happening in the space, right? Because NFTs, I truly think they're the future. I think they're becoming more and more mainstream, which also means that new platforms will arise, right? And the major problem of Ethereum right now, I mean, is obviously the gas fee.
Oh yeah.
That was the main reason why I looked to Solana, because it's so cheap, like the transaction fee by comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, Ethereum, I love Ethereum. I invest in it, and I sold everything on Ethereum right now. But in terms of the NFTs, I think like 24, 28 pieces, somewhere in that range. And I made serious money with it, but it's just, I wanted to gift another collector, an early collector of mine, with an NFT on my own, and was taking for free, obviously, as a gift. I was checking the gas fee, and it was about $160, $170 for a transaction.
Yeah, just the transaction. And you think if someone wanted to just, like, let's say, buy a pizza with Ethereum, and then a transaction fee is $160, that's just not possible. Like, that just, it doesn't work yet for the system like that.
No.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention FTX real quick, because FTX just launched their NFT marketplace, which, so they're a big exchange. But the thing about it that is really fascinating is apparently they are doing cross-chain NFTs. I just saw this today. It was tweeted a few days ago, but that means you could buy and sell Ethereum NFTs within Solana. So it's essentially it's almost like a virtual machine. Like, it's, I think if they're using it, they're calling it the EVM, is what I've seen for other things. But if they're using the EVM, it's like running Windows on your Mac or vice versa, but it's running Ethereum within Solana. And if that works, all bets are off. I don't know what's going to happen with Solana. It could just explode, because Ethereum 2 isn't there yet. It's not, they don't have the gas. Like you said, the gas isn't figured out and dialed in a way that makes it feasible, but Solana already does it. So I'm very curious to see what happens in the next week, month, like very near term, because there's a huge potential over there right now. And like you said, not a ton of competition either.
Yeah, and is it based on Solana? Like, do you get paid in Solana then, basically?
Yeah, like, I don't know the mechanism of how they do the cross-chain. But from what I understand, from the little bit that I've seen so far, because I just was looking earlier today at this, the little bit I've seen so far, it looks like you can buy and sell and make the transactions in Solana, so in Sol, but it can still be an Ethereum piece that's moved across, like cross-chain. And yeah, if that works, like, oof.
I mean, the good thing in general is that every blockchain or every cryptocurrency that has the potential to operate with another blockchain, or I don't know what the proper term is, but that can be like, how do you say it, compatible?
Yeah.
In a way, it means that all the major blockchain or the cryptocurrencies will grow because of that, right? Because then it's not like just this one replacing that one. It's like, oh, it's compatible with that one, so that the value is growing for all the major ones, at least that have a similar function. No, I think it's exciting. Like I said, I invested in Solana right now after all the research I did. And yeah, I mean, even in Europe, because obviously I'm in Germany, it's just already like 20% from what I invested last week, 20 to 25% or more. So I thought, I don't want to get too crazy, like, but like it's a big enough amount that if it grows much further, then that you will see a return of investment. And I'm excited about low transaction. And I have to say, in general, all the NFT marketplaces, even the ones that use like ADA, like Cardano, they don't look as good. Like from a user interface, they look kind of cheap, like a cheap ripoff of OpenSea in a way, like a low budget version, like a B or C movie. And I'm thinking, I mean, if it gets more popular, they're going to improve that. But OpenSea, or like every marketplace, even the closed ones like Super Rare, Non-Origin, they look so much more stylish and better than what the competition looks like. So I'm hoping they change that. Even the Solana Holoplex, I checked it out yesterday. It's decent. It's kind of simple, but it's just not there yet, right? But again, it's not that big yet, so maybe that grows with more demand.
Yeah. Have you looked at Tezos at all?
I have. I even a few months ago I bought like €100, which is like $120 or $130 of Tezos, and I tried Hickenlunk.
Yeah.
NFT platform. I didn't like it at all. Like I found it's very minimalist. I thought, oh, it's going to be easy, but I found it very still complicated. So like selling a piece means you swap it. And that's like when you have something and then you put it out on the market where it gets minted, and it's called a swap. Like, why did you just like put like an OpenSea, like sell it, right?
Yeah.
Why did you swap it? Because swapping means like, yeah. And I don't know the user interface, nah. And then there was not a lot of it's I don't know. I don't like it as much. I think OpenSea is still the best, but I want to branch out, obviously. But I'm always curious for new ones, right? I never want to be stuck with one platform.
Yeah, and like I like Tezos as a blockchain, but yeah, Hickenlunk, even the name, it's hard to say, hard to remember. But yeah, it doesn't have the interface yet, unfortunately, to really make it like user friendly. There is Object, so I think it's Object with a K, Objekt, which does
no
Tezos.
vocals.
What's that?
No vocals, I think, like a constant. Or is it? It's just like OBJKT.
Okay, yeah. So, and that one seems nicer, but still, there's things like in OpenSea you can sort differently. You can like see recently sold. There's little features that OpenSea is. They're just so much more. They're so much further down the line. It's just a better platform in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, once these other ones catch up, yeah, really, all bets are off. Who knows what'll happen with all of it? Yeah, really fascinating. How much of your like business and what you do now, how much do NFTs play a role in it? Because you have, like you mentioned, the illustration, the covers, the private clients and things. Like how does that all balance out?
A good question. I finished just 2 bigger client projects. So I have another smaller one on the horizon. So right now I would say it's like more than 80% actually, because of the money that I already made. And
80% for which?
Of 80% of the time, which I spent on now, because I made like, I think I made like in 2 months alone, like 3.5 ETH.
That's amazing.
From just NFTs, right? And it's like an instant, obviously. Some of it I paid out, but most of it I just reinvest or keep in Ethereum. I've reinvested in 10 different cryptocurrencies. So it's very hard to beat when you see those numbers and as quickly as they come in, because it's instant, right? So when I had those 2 client projects, I was like 50-50 time management, 50% on that, 50% on the new stuff. But now it's more like 80%. And I also created like a buffer, so I don't need to make a lot of money in the next month. So I can play around more and experiment more.
Yeah, for sure.
And you have to remember, I live in Germany. We have higher taxes than Americans, but we have national insurance, which means like I know that friends of mine who are illustrators or artists in the US, they always worry about their fees when it comes to hospitals and stuff like that. Even if I don't make a lot of money, I don't have to worry about that. I will always I pay like $100 for my insurance.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't realize the taxes were higher in Germany. Like, do you know relative, like how much it is, like percentage-wise, approximately?
I would say, like, I don't know what your highest income tax is in America. I think it's around 30%. Is it true?
Yeah, that's pretty, like, all in with state and local, you're pretty much guaranteed to be like 1/3, like 33%. But then, yeah, tax brackets, it goes up from there. Yeah. So who knows?
And in Germany, it's 44%.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And for the highest tax bracket. Obviously, we have the same progressive tax. So it's not that you pay 40%. It depends on, like, until you make 50,000 euro, you pay that tax range. If you make until like 80,000 euro, you pay more for that additional.
Yeah.
But obviously, as an artist, I do have costs. Like I have an iMac, I have a phone, I have like an iPad, so I just obviously deduct everything. And so I pay very little taxes right now because I'm able to deduct a lot of it.
Nice.
And yeah, there's like an artist advantage. So I get I don't know how to call it. It doesn't exist in the US, but there's like artists in general have to pay a little less.
Oh,
and they get certain perks from the government. Like I pay less for health insurance like some normal guy that is not a creative.
Nice. Yeah, so that's interesting.
I pay just 30% of the insurance that they have to pay. So when they pay like 300 or 400, I only pay like 120 or so per month.
Yeah, that's a good setup.
Yeah, for creatives, because the government learned they can figure that creatives are not the richest, so let's make it easy for them, which I enjoy. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned the gear a little bit. What is your, like, I love diving into origin stories, so we're going to do that in a minute, but what is your sort of gear of choice? Like, are you doing a lot of stuff on the iPad? Are you still doing stuff like Photoshop? Like where does your typical piece, sort of what's the life cycle of a typical piece that you create?
So about a year ago, I was mainly using my iMac. I have like an upgraded iMac. And I use basically a Wacom tablet, which is a Japanese company. And they make like a tablet. And it's not like an iPad tablet. It's really just like, it looks like a black plate of plastic. And you draw on it with a pen like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a digital pen. And then you look on the screen and you see the result. And I was using Clip Studio Pro, which is a software for manga, comic artists, and illustrators. So I was using Photoshop for like file readjustments, like formatting and stuff like that, and additional effects. But the main drawing was done in Clip Studio Pro. But then I got an iPad Pro, and I fell in love with Procreate. I know. And it's the #1 app for drawing for the iPad. And I can't quit, man. I'm speaking to you via my iMac, but I'm still using my iPad because I can switch back to it, but I just want to draw on the iPad because you see it, right? You don't have to look at the separate screen. You see it, and it's so much better. Like
it's amazing. I would say my art would like, it's arguably, it's like cheap, relatively speaking. Like if you have an iPad and you throw Procreate for like $30, and it is so amazing. Like I can't believe, like I started drawing because of Procreate, because it's like I enjoy it, and it's like I wouldn't like pull out a piece of paper and draw, but I'll pull out my iPad and play around and try some different things. And like, it's amazing how far the tech has come, because those old, like the Wacom tablets, especially for a while, were very expensive. And you still had, like you said, your finger wasn't connected to the screen. Like you were looking at the screen and drawing down here. And yeah, I'm so impressed by what Apple's done with that device. So cool. But yeah.
And it's ridiculously cheap. Like in Germany, it costs about €10, the app.
Oh, nice.
Which is like 12. And I think in America, it shouldn't be much more expensive. It should be like $12 or $13 at the most.
Okay,
and I thought it's like a light version or like a trial version or something. I'm thinking, but because I'm used to Photoshop prices, how much you pay for a month, I'm thinking this cost less than like renting Photoshop for a month, right? And you get the full version.
Yeah, and it's your whole business. Wow. Your whole business in an iPad, essentially, which is amazing. Just so amazing. I love that. So I wanted to dive into your origin story. First, I don't know if you've ever shared it, and if you want to, but the name Mars, where did that stem from initially?
So my real name is Marius Dorian, and then Schmidt. And Schmidt is like the #1 German name. And I thought, I hate that. It has to do with my mother. My mother is also a full-time artist, and she's actually quite successful. Like she had an exhibition lately and a huge studio in Berlin. But she always regretted having not listened to herself, but to my father, because her original name is Inga Hildebrand, which is a very old school Nordic Germanic name. She really likes that name, but my father, obviously, she took his name, Schmidt, which is Smith or Miller in the US, I guess, right? It's so bland. And she used then that boring name as her artist name. And every time we talk about naming issues, like she's still complaining, I should have listened 30 years ago. I should have listened to myself. Shouldn't have taken Schmidt. I should have taken my old Germanic name, Hildebrand Inga. And every time I heard that as a child, and I thought, okay, I cannot like keep that name. Like, I don't want to be like that where I complain. And so, and I did an exchange here in the United States at a high school, and no one could pronounce my name, like the R sound in the middle, that Marius. Mm-hmm. They said like Marius, Mario, Super Mario, the running back,
yeah.
And I basically, because I always liked the planet Mars, and like the Greek, right, like the god of war, basically, like Ares and Mars, same name, and that's why I picked it, and I immediately used that instead of Marius. It's only I and you canceled out, right?
Yeah.
Then you have that name. And Dorian is like also my name, so I picked that as my artist name.
Yeah, it's perfect. It is. I'm sure it has to be a little frustrating when you're doing like the stuff international and you can't use like your actual name because it's tougher. But it is a great brand. Like from the beginning, just Mars. Because I would say Mars Dorian is how I would always pronounce it, but like it's very American. But like it has from day one it had a vibe to it that I was just like, okay, that's awesome. Saw your art. I'm like, the art is phenomenal. I love how you've crafted your own unique, like it's such your style. Like I've like every so often I'll see something like from someone that I'm like, that reminds me of Mars. Like it's you're sort of that core of this particular style. Like you mentioned, like cartoon urban. Is that how you described it?
Yeah, I call it like urban cartoon art, basically.
Yeah, it is so cool. But to rewind sort of to your origin story, like you mentioned your mom is an artist or was an artist, and sort of what did you what was your upbringing like? Like, did you expect to be an artist? Was this something you've always done growing up? And like, sort of, where did you expect to be as an adult? Like, sort of dive into that journey just a little bit.
Yeah. So basically, I wanted to become a comic book artist when I was stepping into a supermarket in Germany, and I was like 7 years old, and it was in the we also have like a little sea, North Sea. And it was near the beach, and I wanted to eat ice cream because I was hooked on ice cream like a drug addict. And then I saw that comic stand, and they had like Ghostbusters, the first issue, the real Ghostbusters. And I flipped through it, and I fell in love immediately, and that's when it all started. And then I said, I don't want the ice cream, Mom. I want the comic here. And she's like, are you okay? Because I was addicted to ice cream. She's like, no, I can't really get you the ice cream. No, I want the comic book. Like I insisted on it. And she was giving me that look, but then she bought it, and that's where the fascination started. And yeah, for the longest time, I wanted to be actually a comic book artist. I went to school actually for filmmaking and like media studies, and I kind of liked it. I learned a lot about filmmaking and storytelling, but the problem was that I kind of hated waking up early in the morning, having to do with huge teams, and there's a lot of bureaucracy involved, especially in Germany if you want to get funding for a movie. Like you basically have to create your own production bureau, a studio, and you have to apply for funding and I thought like that's so much trouble. Like I want to go back to what I did as a child and teenager, which was draw all the time, like a crazy person, draw. And then I chose that path, and I mixed it basically with blogging, right? So I was into blogging for like a long time. Well, long in internet years.
Yeah.
And I loved it, and I also liked blog articles and illustrated and wrote articles for other people on their marketing blogs. And I liked it, but I never had like a huge break with that. And I thought like, okay, and then when I realized that blogging was on its way out, I thought like I should go back to what I originally want to do, which is draw, right?
Yeah.
And then those years were basically where I tried everything, how to make money with like, especially like digital drawing and like doing commissions, even a gallery with high quality prints and doing different stuff. But I always realized like I never really found what was truly mine. I thought about going back to comic books, but the industry, even though it's very international now, a lot of Germans work for American publishers. I found the whole business model be so old fashioned, like the way they get paid, the restrictions they have, and the rights issue. That was the biggest point. Like today, the publisher still keeps all the rights, and you don't own your own IP, right? And you hear that with a lot of writers and comic artists who create like characters for DC and Marvel, and they don't own any copyright on that character, like the guy who created Ghost Rider, or the guy who created the Winter Soldier, which is now with Captain America, a huge franchise, right? Like he didn't get any royalties for that character, and he created a whole storyline and everything. And because I just read an interview with him, and he said it's $1 billion franchise, and he doesn't make any money from that, even though he created the whole character and backstory. And I thought, it's just not a good industry. It's just very exploitative. And that's where I was so fascinated by NFTs, right? Making that smooth transition. Because you keep your IP, you're in charge, and the middlemen kind of, I wouldn't say they disappear, but they're not as important as they used to be. It's merely like a platform where there's a smart contract created, right? And where you upload your stuff and sell it. But you don't need to really ask for permission for like a publisher who then keeps all the rights.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
and having the royalties built in, so like you don't run into the problem where someone's like, we're not going to pay you anymore. It's like, no, this is just how it works. It doesn't. It's immutable. It can't be changed in the future, which is brilliant. So in the blogging days, because that's when we met, were you full-time artist at that moment? Did you ever have to like balance it with like a day job or anything, or were you able to like start into blogging and illustration for yourself and for others like full-time?
Yeah, no, I can't remember the last time I had like a day job. Early 20s, I think. No, I was doing it full-time because I was still doing a lot of artwork and private commissions and stuff like that. And I was living very frugal, right? Like I didn't have my own. I lived like with two friends, and I had, even though I lived in the city, like I had very low cost. And like I said, like national insurance, like even if you're poor creative, like you can get poor by going to the doctor or have a surgery. So that helps, right? So you have that security in the back. And yeah, no, I didn't have any day job. I was always finding a way of making money, even if I didn't have a lot of money. And frugal living helps, which is something I learned from Seth Godin, the marketer, right? Like keeping your main cost, keeping it low, that you have more freedom. The more lavish your lifestyle, the more unfree you become, not just mentally, but also in terms of obligations and bills to pay.
Yeah, and that is that entrepreneurial vibe. It's a freedom. That's what we're all going after. It's sort of the cliche, like I'd rather work 80 hours a week for myself than 40 hours a week for someone else, because it is that freedom, and it really is like, because that's, I'm all about that. That is my whole focus is, I don't, like you said, I don't want to have to wake up early and deal with bureaucracy with a media company or whatever it is. Like I want to do things on my pace at my time, and I want to strike out and win big on my own. Like that's just, it's the entrepreneurial way, I think.
Absolutely. When I talk to my friends, some of them most of them are like freelancers, even they're programmers or other artists, but some of them work for like a company, and it's just, even if they make decent or good money, it's just what the stories they tell me. It's just frightening. Like the bullying going on where like a colleague is like bad mouthing them, or there's rivalry, or they have huge problems with the boss. And there's like just a toxic working atmosphere, and they dread going to work, and they always talk about the weekend and traveling for holidays. And that's like always when they shine, like, yeah. And then as soon as you talk about their work, it's like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, the bulk of our time is spent working, especially when we have a day job. So to have that experience is not, I don't know. I don't cherish that. That's not something I would ever go back to. Like you, like my last job was like 12 years ago or something. Like that was the only job I had, and then I've been doing this ever since. But yeah, I couldn't imagine having to like clock in, clock out, and do the typical stuff. But when you were first starting out, I know it's a while ago now, how were you finding your commissions and the, like, say, private collectors or things that were bringing in the money? Was there anything connected to, because I know since your mom is already an artist and in the space, was it anything to do with that, or did you have any other tips or things that you discovered along the way?
So I think it was two things. One of them was I was very active on Twitter already, and I showed my artwork and stuff like that. So I made a lot of relationships, which I still make, through Twitter, which is my preferred network. Mm-hmm. And the other thing was that has to do with my mom, because I was still like going to like artist meetups at like parties, where you just meet a lot of interesting people. And some of them, they bought artworks from me, and that's where I even created like galleries and exhibitions with them. So obviously the artist society or community around my mother, that helped, and the Twitter, like being relentless on Twitter, connecting with people, and like basically choosing your favorite network and being very active on that, and being just a decent person. And if they see your work, if you have a clear enough call to action on your website, what you do, then and then a few years later after that, it was just word of mouth, right? Just like people recommending you.
Yeah, and you have that snowball effect. It's just rolling downhill, and more people learn, and you had that balance. Like it feels like a lot of artists run into, like, they might be creating something great, but they haven't built that network, because like a lot of times people don't want to sell and like do the things, and they might feel a little funny. And like I always feel it's unfortunate, because I feel like a lot of people sort of, they have their lane, but they may not connect those two pieces, you know?
A lot of artists that I meet, they're quite good with their art and everything, but they're terrible at selling. I'm not really good at selling myself, but I'm much better at creating or connecting with people, because I'm generally curious about other people, what they do, what they make. And so it's easy for me to connect with them. But some of them are like, some creators are very reclusive, and it's very hard for them to connect. And I think like even that Czech friend of mine from Prague, she's like, oh, don't tell me I have to go on Twitter, like, and talk to people. And I'm like, well, like, it's not selling itself, right? Like you do put in some effort. And like, I could just see her eyes rolling, like,
yeah.
And I'm thinking, it's something, I'm afraid, especially in today's age, that you have to learn. That I see artists and creators who I think are not that good at the art aspect, but they're so good at connecting and like touting their own horn, right? And just promoting it. And like, holy geez, I can learn from them, right? I really like, you think they're the new Messiah coming to Earth, right?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the artwork, I'm thinking, is that your artwork? Like, I'm not saying anything mean, because I always respect creators, but I'm thinking, holy crap, like they're really good at the selling. And that's, for better or worse, is more important, like connecting with people and promoting yourself. And and if you're just good, it's the whole discoverability factor, right? If people don't know about you, you can be the best in the world, right? There needs to be a way of leveraging attention that you can bank in on your creative artworks and your work.
Yeah. And a big question, I feel like, when it comes to the creative space, always comes down to pricing. Like, someone comes in, they're like, oh, I would like this. How much does it cost? Or I would like you to do X, Y, Z. How much will that cost? How do you approach pricing? Because I feel like everyone does it a little differently. Like we do our stuff a lot from, we don't do like a time, like per hour, but I will always estimate things based on, okay, if this will take us a week and we need this much revenue for the year, 1 week costs X. Do you have like some sort of formula or anything that you do in your approach?
So when I was pricing my premium prints, obviously you think about how much it costs to print them, because they're limited editions, and it costs quite a lot of money to print a piece, because it's a high quality German paper. It's like a super industrial heavy printer, costs like between 50 and 100 euro just to print out one piece. So you focus on that, and then how much you think it's worth, and the frame and everything. So you come to like, I don't know, 300 or 350 for a piece euro. And basically you look at how much money you need, obviously, for a month for a minimum decent living, and then how much artwork or services you have to sell in which range. And and from that, basically I went to NFTs, and that was quite difficult, actually, how to price NFTs, because I thought, I'm very new to that space. Should I price it like I price my premium prints? And I was very conflicted. I asked a lot of people, I started a little bit cheaper because people tell me it's much better to go cheaper, not cheap-ish, but cheaper, and then raise the price. And I started like selling stuff like an edition for, let's say, 7 pieces in edition for like $120 or $100, right?
Mm-hmm.
For my 7 edition out of 7 pieces. And then I said like, okay, so if I sell like a single piece, like a one-on-one, then I should be at least like 4 or 5 times that much. And I did like 450, maybe $400 in that range. And now between like usually 0.2 ETH, which is around, well, it's very volatile.
Yeah.
Between I would say 600 and like, I have to say $780, right? Because that's the price range and that's the new price range for like a single, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking like, I sold one for $800, but it was still 0.2 ETH. And yesterday I sold for the same price range, but I made like $670 from it. So I lost like $130 just because
the volatility.
Yeah. So yeah, pricing in crypto is much harder because of the volatility, right? A dollar is more or less as much worth next year as it is today, obviously with like inflation, a few percentages, but it's not going to be 2 or 3 times as expensive as today, right?
Yeah.
So it's much easier to price then, but yeah, you have to keep in mind how much do you think money do you need? How much do you think you're worth for that product, like that artwork? And like keeping volatility in mind, that what is like the trajectory of the currency. If Ethereum is more on an upward trajectory, you have to keep that in mind, because if you price too high and we're another like a bullish run, then it becomes super expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and if you don't sell it, I mean, you can always like adjust the price a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's fair, because you have to adapt to the volatility.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And do you have a release schedule or anything that you like impose on yourself? Like, do you feel like I need to have X number of pieces a month or anything, or is it just purely like when you're inspired to run with one?
No. So I would say a minimum of 3 pieces per week,
mm-hmm.
usually Monday to Friday or Saturday, usually fanned out like every 2 days. Sometimes I make a shorter break, maybe just one, or I do one piece right the next day if I sold the other one like very quickly.
Uh-huh.
But if there's like, so that's minimum 3 to 4, I would say. And I'm very consistent. Like, I don't want to just like post whenever I feel like it, because I post everything on Twitter, and if there's too much of like a break and just different tweets, then future collectors come and they don't see my artwork in the feed, I think it's bad marketing for yourself. And if they see that they're very active, there's the idea that, oh, this guy is going places, like he's producing, right? So there's more an incentive to buy something. And 3 is the minimum, I would say, per week.
Yeah, I like how you're doing that, because you're really applying the entrepreneur like mentality to NFT and art, and it's important, like exactly what you're saying, because it's like, and unless you're front of mind, there is an endless feed on Twitter of people talking about NFTs, promoting NFTs, all these different things. So yeah, you need to have your lane there where people see what you're doing and know that you are active. Like, that's a really good approach. When it comes to inspiration, you were gonna say something?
No, I just wanted to add what I do. I always pin my tweets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my artworks mostly. So when I have a couple collectors, I would say I have like 6 collectors who keep on buying stuff from me, who have bought like at least 3 or 4 pieces. And it's also like they keep retweeting my stuff, even if they don't buy every piece, right?
Nice.
If you have like a new pinned tweet, it always shows like someone being active, right? Like if he checks or she checks my Twitter profile and see, oh, it's a new artwork pinned, like there's new stuff going on. But if they check and it's the same artwork that I've pinned like 2 weeks ago, it seems like, okay, is this like a dead account? Maybe that's a bit drastic, but is he still doing something? Is he alive, right?
Uh-huh.
So, but the truth is, I also have really fun creating. So I I keep that in mind. And waiting for inspiration, I think it's like not a death penalty, but it's like, I mean, then you're not a professional. Then you're just like a hobby artist, right? It's like just waiting for the muse to strike me and give me inspiration. Just, yeah, I guess if you have a
and I feel like your pieces have like sort of a philosophy of life and business built into them usually, because you usually have some writing on them. Where do you draw that from?
So here's the idea. It's a bit personal, but it's relevant to the question. So I have a congenital heart disease, right? I was born with it. I had 2 major heart surgeries in the last 5 years. Wow. Worst experience of my life, because your lung collapses, like they break open your thorax, your lung collapses. You need at least half a year, up to a year to fully recover, because it messes up your whole system. You take a lot of medication. You have to be very careful what kind of sport you do, how you eat and everything, because you're more fragile, right? So you don't see it. You will never notice it when I talk to you, because I don't have any physical like restrictions, but it's still there. And I always thought like a lot of artwork is very smooth, very clean. Like they don't have any errors or imperfections, right? Even like, especially when they're drawing women, it's just like a beautiful face and like a model. And the creations that I have, they're always imperfect. They always have either like a rash or some feature that doesn't quite look well, or they have like a glass eye, some damage, or like they have like a replacement on their limb, or they have like a lot of bandages, right? Like you see a lot of artworks of mine with bandages. And that's the mindset, that they're imperfect beings who have like physical damage or maybe like mentally, but they still work. They still have that life, right? But they're imperfect. And that's where I bring the personal like health experiences into my artworks, because I cannot draw like effectively congenital heart disease with people, right? Unless you really focus on that. And that's where the inspiration comes from. Like, I don't ever want to create like a perfect character that's just super slick. They always have some blemishes.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. It makes it all the more beautiful, like hearing that about the art too. Yeah, I'm definitely looking at everything through a new lens. I already love your art, so but yeah, that's amazing. And then when it comes to the actual text that you write on there, then is that usually in the moment this is where you're thinking? Do you try to, because I feel like you sort of have a theme throughout with the writing. How do you approach like what you're going to even name the piece, or the little I don't want to say aphorisms, but sort of like you'll put a lot of things like about building and growing and moving forward and forward momentum, I guess.
So I would say that when I create like a character, I make sure that it somehow connects to that character, or what he's like exuding, what kind of vibe, right? And I don't have like, I don't write it down like before I do the drawing. It usually comes naturally when I draw, when I realize, so this is the kind of character that I'm creating. So what would be like, in a way, constructive, or what would fit that attitude of that character, or could be an extension of the character, right? And I started that actually when I was blogging and writing for other blogs and illustrating my works. And I would always use like kind of like tweets and hashtags on the people, on the creations, because I thought that's a cool idea in social media, and it's stuck ever since. So you see a lot of characters that have like a hashtag as like an eyeliner, or they have like very weird band-aids that sometimes have like symbols on them, or they have just like a jacket or like a tattoo that is like part drawing, part, I guess, motivational phrase or something. So it comes obviously from my mindset, from the character that I create that fits the best. And but because I've done so many drawings now, it just comes natural at this point. It's like I'm drawing it from my unconscious mind.
Yeah. And just because I am not really an artist, illustrator, or anything, like I like to draw just because I enjoy it. But when you sit down to start, are you ever looking, because now, like you said, it just sort of exudes from you. Are you ever looking for specific inspiration? Like maybe like, oh, I watched this movie last night. I liked there's something about that makes me think this. Like, do you have, like, I guess sort of what's your muse maybe, or is it just so ingrained now that you've done this for so long that it just flows?
I mean, I wish I could summon like a muse, like a Pokemon, where I just like throw the ball and then the muse Pokemon comes out. And no, it actually comes from a change of character. I was very super political a few years ago, and I would get very mad at certain issues. And a good friend of mine, she told me, like, you're very smart, but like you get enraged by so many issues, like with people who disagree with you, be a little bit more curious. Like if you're more curious, you will get less angry because you're always interested in other people's opinion. And I realized I didn't like myself then because I was getting triggered way too easily. That feels like a lifetime ago now. And she told me that, and I developed a curiosity. Like every time I meet someone or a new food, I would say, interesting, right? Like that open mindset. And that's where the inspiration comes from, actually, from that mindset. That whenever I go, when I eat new food or drink something new in a different country or meet like a person that has a completely different mindset and political background, I always have like that curious mindset and like, I want to know more. And with that mindset, you learn from everything, like from food, from the people you meet, from animation, from Korea, Japan, and what have you, and you just soak in on all up, right? Instead of being like a closed wall.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so important. And like, as you said, that you're inspired by so many things for your style as well. Like, how long did that take to develop? Because like, it's so distinct and so Mars. Did you ever take other paths? Like, were you ever doing any, like a different thing that's completely different that you would look at today and be like, wow, that doesn't even feel like the same person drew it or created it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like about 10 years ago, my style was completely different. It was more like a copy of another artist that I admired, like Jamie C. Hewlett. There's still the inspiration from him. But then it was just like basically copying your idols, right? And made your style very samey. But then people said, oh, that looks good. That looks like that one artist who created like Tank Girl and Gorillas. And first you think, that's cool. But then when people keep saying that, you think, well, I want it to look like my art, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be compared to the same artist. And yeah, and when I did the blogging and I included all the social media aspects and those characters and everything, that's when I developed it. And I also did murals in Berlin.
Nice.
And I lived at the time in Kreuzberg, which is like, back then it was like a ghetto, poor district. Now it's completely gentrified. It's like the party district where the wealthy people live. And they had a lot of walls with graffiti, street art, and a lot of stuff by, what's his name? The American artist. He did the Obama Hope poster, Shepard Fairey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, quite a lot of murals from him in Berlin, from
nice.
Originally, because he talked about it in an interview that he was in Kreuzberg, Berlin, was quite famous for the graffiti. And I saw that, and I basically was inspired by it. So my love for the urban aspect of Berlin is very Berlin influenced. The artwork, the street art. Then obviously my obsession was like animation and manga and even American comics, and then my personal life experiences. And you just mush it all together and create your own art smoothly.
Yeah. Are there any photos of the murals that you did? I'd be so curious to see that.
I don't have digital photo. I was still using a analog camera, but I have analog photos of them. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that is very cool.
Doing something. I did something that doesn't exist in the United States. We call it a Litwas-Säule. It looks like a Roman pillar. It's exclusive to Berlin, actually. It's where you put like basically old school wallpapers. It looks just like a circle, like a pillar from like a Roman building, and you have that all everywhere in Berlin. And that's where I did like my own murals. Like you have to think like 3-dimensional.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, very cool. So what are you most excited about right now? Like, I mean, NFTs, obviously there's a lot going on there, but yeah, what are you thinking about?
No, I really like the idea, coming back to that freedom concept. What I really like about NFTs and the whole space is that you can do it from everywhere because I'm very mobile. I don't want to be stuck to like a certain place, and you can create everything digitally. and sell it, which is huge. Like a lot of digital artists didn't know how to make money except for like private commissions, but now you can sell art, but you don't have the logistics or the frame issues or the material issues of the analog art world. So that I love that aspect, the digitalization. What I'm also excited about is that you own the IPs, like the intellectual property, which is huge for me because I know quite a few people who got what we talked about earlier, screwed by their publishers and exploited. And the ideas where you can develop it, right? I still think we're in the beginning. I just read an article on Deadline, which is a Hollywood magazine, a website about how studios and like agencies are buying like NFT projects. I don't know if you've heard about that.
No, I haven't seen that.
So they bought like it was, I think, Bored Apes, Meebit, which I don't know as much. It's also like a collection, and 2 other projects. And there's gonna be like, I guess, like an animation series and more projects in the way. Another guy, Ghost Collection, Ghost written with an X.
Oh yeah,
very popular. I mean, the guy's super rich now, multi-millionaire by now, because if you see how the prices are, like 50 ETH sometimes for like an artwork, or like a little portrait, 50 ETH, and he's selling it, right? It's not just on the market, he's selling it, but he also wants to make like a graphic novel, and he has multiple ideas where he can take it. And that's very inspiring. That's what I'm excited about, that instead of just selling digital artworks, he can expand. Think about graphic novels or different projects, right? Doing collaborations with any other artist around the globe, right? It's just the sheer amount of possibilities that you have as a digital creator, and you still keep the right, like the copyright to yourself, and that's not like a corporation or a publisher who claims that right. Like potential, freedom, and that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, and do you foresee yourself doing maybe that comic book that you always thought about doing?
I do. I actually thought about doing my first foray into that space would be doing an ongoing cartoon series with an obsessed NFT creator, which is totally not a reflection of myself. Doing it like in a slightly anime, manga-ish inspired way, but with a lot of gags concerning the whole NFT and crypto art space.
Yeah.
Which would be super nerdy. Everyone who basically understands that space would understand all the jokes. And I'm not seeing that. I see some cartoons, but it's definitely on the lower end. I think I'm just going to start that because I've done a few of them, but I wasn't entirely sure about the pricing model, like, because it's like the edition size and the pricing model, because they're different than like a single artwork. But yeah, and in the near future, I want to do like a graphic novel with my characters that is very, in my style, influenced by technique, like modern tech and the crypto space, where you combine it with like a fantasy RPG kind of like world building.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds.
Where the magic is basically like a cryptocurrency, which you can stake and basically cash in and sell. The more magic you have, the more powerful your spells become, and there are like mana pools and stuff like that.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
Have you started talking with developers and things on that, or is it still in the idea phase?
No, I wanted to actually do a Kickstarter with that comic idea. Nice. About a world where mana is like the standard word for magic, right, in RPGs, where it is technically like a cryptocurrency, and it has a huge impact on how the whole world is shaped. And I did a lot of designs. I have like 20 pages sketched out. I have all the character designs and everything. It was to be a Kickstarter, but I'm learning that's also quite complicated in terms of logistics and everything. So I'm learning about that. And a friend of mine told me, like, why don't you do it like NFT style, right? But then I'm looking at CryptoPunks at the comic book. I think it's also called Crypt. And it looks like they have a whole team behind that, right? Like they have an investor and developers and stuff. It's not just like one artist, because they have quite the website and a real system of, if you buy that one, you can burn that one and you get like a token.
Yeah. Once you get outside of OpenSea, there is a lot of development because it's still so early. but there's so much potential when you're developing your own, Absolutely. Which is awesome.
So I'm still, because I'm fairly new to that space, I would say 2.5 months, I'm learning. I'm always learning everything about how I can turn that into a reality. I'm still doing designs for that, but right now I'm not yet experienced enough for me. It's still overwhelming, right?
Oh yeah.
It won't be maybe like in 3 or 6 months when I've learned way more and have more sales and everything. So that's definitely on my horizon. That's the bigger project I want to do. I have to do, because I think it speaks for all the nerds, right? Taking like a concept like RPG, dungeon style fantasy with like cryptocurrency and
Yeah, I really like that. And doing the cartoon you mentioned, are those like short clips that then people would buy as an NFT, or were you thinking more like full length, like episode type things?
So it's gonna be like I don't know how that principle is called. It's like 4 panels and 2 panels on top and 2 panels below. So it's not the American style strip that you have in newspapers. It's like the Japanese style where you have 2 equally sized panels. Nice. And the fourth panel is usually like the punchline. I would do it like that and sell it basically as single pieces, maybe a first edition of 20, 25, maybe 30, and then pricing them fairly cheaply between $50 and $100 now, talking in dollars, not in cryptocurrency, and seeing if you make any sales on that, right? And if you do, I would like maybe every week create 1 or 2 cartoons and create like a collection of them, all geeky jokes. You just need to buy one to get the joke for that one, but having maybe like a larger theme that is still somehow connecting them. But that would be more feasible than like a big graphic novel with like a lot of characters and world building and everything, right? So I think that would be a natural stepping stone.
Yeah, that's really good. It's sort of like so we have a mutual friend, Srini, and he would write his stuff on Facebook and sort of workshop it out there, see how it goes, and then it ends up becoming usually a book, like part of a book later, which it's like that is the entrepreneurial approach. Like get the comic strip out there consistently, see how it's received, and then you slowly start building out that universe. And sounds like an awesome approach. I really like it. I'm really excited to see like everything that you're coming up with moving forward. So I don't want to take too much of your time. This has been awesome. Like, where should we send people to check out what you're up to and follow along?
Yeah, so I'm mostly active on Twitter, and my Twitter profile is @MarsDorian. Mars like the red planet, and Dorian like Dorian Gray, right, from that story. And because I have my website and my OpenSea artwork site all basically in my Twitter profile. So that's the number one place to go, where you can check out my website and the OpenSea artwork site.
Yeah, awesome.
Where you can connect with me if you want. I don't mind. I'm a friendly German. I'm not an angry German.
But this was really great. Like, thank you so much. I want to thank Mars for joining me on this episode. Be sure to check out his Twitter account, and that's just @MarsDorian. And definitely, like, please check out his art. Like, I think you're going to love it. His style is something that's just always spoken to me. I love it. It is so uniquely him. And it also has like a real message behind it. And the things like literally have written messages. The pieces have written messages, but also just the story that now I didn't even know ahead of time or previously. It really just means a lot. And I am definitely, as I finish recording this, I'm going to go back and peruse more of what he has out there right now. But anyway, that's Mars Dorian on Twitter. As always, this episode of Starting Now is brought to you by Built. At Built, we help you get started online. Whether you want to start a blog or a business, head over to built.co. That's BYLT.co to get started. Built, your website, built for you, simply. And finally, if you're enjoying the show, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening right now, or follow along on YouTube. I would love to get a subscribe on YouTube from you, and a little thumbs up on this video if you enjoyed it, because that really goes a long way to reach more people. So that'll do it. I'm Jeff Sarris. This has been Starting Now, and I'll see you next time.